Good morning and welcome to VSA Capital 5 Minute Morning Miner on Tuesday, the 6th of June. And a morning where Boris Johnson has won his vote of no confidence, but only by 59%. 41% voted against him. And they had no time to muster their forces. It was 148 versus 211, which just happens to be the two buses that stop outside Parliament. Funny that, the buses predicting the vote. Anyway, Paul, how are you this morning?
That is pretty odd. Buses predicting the vote. I didn't realize that. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm well, thanks.
Very good. Right, let's crack on to mining, where we don't have the ins and outs of Boris Johnson. Let's start. We got more great news coming out of Atlantic Lithium, isn't there?
Yes.
Shanghai Mining Club member, by the way. So we love all the Shanghai Mining Club members.
That's right. And Atlantic Lithium, which is lithium pegmatites on the coast near the coast of Ghana in West Africa. This is metallurgical test results indicating that the pegmatite ore there at Awoya responds well to standard separation techniques of heavy liquids or dense media separation to produce suitable spodumene concentrate of better than 6%. So in that sense, no surprises, I think is the best way to put it there. All things are still go as far as the progress and speed to get this a really sizable deposit into development.
We need to get this one up and running because the price of lithium is still staying remarkably firm, isn't it? And also, actually, whilst talking of strong commodity prices, have you been following, Paul, all these lawsuits against the London Metals Exchange? Two have come out now, Elliott, and another one now, a trading company. And the whole story about how a Chinese billionaire tried to basically rig the market and got it wrong. And it does feel a little bit like the Hong Kong Stock Exchange is trying to protect the Chinese billionaire. And I think they will lose all of these cases. This could be an absolute disaster for the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Don't know if you've been following that, Paul.
I have been following that as the press releases come out. And what it was for the benefit of listeners is the LME essentially halted trading on a particular day because the Chinese trader was so exposed to the price rises because they were short the market in nickel. And as a result, this company that the billionaire owns would have suffered really significant losses if those trades had been forced to go through. But it is the practice of the Chinese government, essentially, when they get embarrassed about somebody getting into financial difficulties, particularly when it comes to the stock markets, they do act in order to protect financial interests in that regard, which isn't allowed in Western markets.
It does demonstrate that, yes, we have to be careful what we say, that there are slightly different rules in different markets, shall we say. The group was Xinjiang Holdings Corp, run by Jiang Guangda, self-made Chinese billionaire. Anyway, moving on from that, that was more of interest. Let's go back to news this morning. Paul, what other news have you got?
Oh, we have Amur Minerals, which has released an updated, essentially independent, or essentially a feasibility study by Russian state-approved consultants, update on the Kunmani nickel sulfide open pit deposit there in Far East Russia. They came up with an internal rate of return of about 15.6%, but this is a doubling of the size of the operation from what had been previously proposed. So we're talking about 12.4 million tons to be treated as opposed to 6 in the prior study. And that accounts for the difference in size and therefore the initial build capex. Up here at $1.9 billion is the informal estimate. The formal numbers weren't a part of this study, but they would come out later. And I think the purpose of this is just to put some solid numbers around the scope and scale of the Kunmani deposit because Amur does have to sell it, being given the geopolitical sanctions against Russia at this point.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's in Russia. The only people who can buy it are basically the Russians or the Chinese. The stock price obviously has completely collapsed, and actually, it's sadly probably pretty worthless now because as I say, only the Russians and the Chinese can buy it, and they know it. But I guess the company will try and turn itself into a shell and move on to something else. Okay, we also, just for what it's worth, we have the BMO Capital Markets Rare Earth virtual conference today, where two of the Shanghai Mining Club members, Pensana and Makango Resources, are presenting. Rare Earth still very much in the limelight. Talking the Shanghai Mining Club, I think we have now come to almost a decision with the Mining Indaba team, and also, of course, One-to-One Mining, which Mining Indaba have bought. And it looks like we'll be holding a sort of virtual conference, but holding it actually in Sydney, so we're on a live time frame with Beijing on Friday, October the 13th. More news will be coming out on that soon as we confirm things. Any other mining news you want to comment on this morning, Paul?
Yes, I think it's important to mention this press release out by TSX-listed BC gold mine developer Skeena Resources that there has been granted a historic consent-based decision-making agreement with the Tahltan First Nations there, which is the First Nations involved around the Skeena, SK Creep, and Snip mines redevelopments. Snip being a joint venture with Hochschild, and Skeena being a whole owner of SK Creek. The importance, I think, from this standpoint is that it does give the wording that the Tahltan Nation has, quote unquote, the right to manage the decisions being made at the operating level at the mine. And that kind of wording is, I think, unique because it does adopt the first principles as proposed by the United Nations Declaration on Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Toward mining operations or extraction of natural resources. And frankly, that's is something which most countries in natural resource private companies have not yet adopted because they think it might cause interference at later times as far as operating decisions are concerned. So we'll see how that plays out.
Watch this space, as they say. Okay, anything else, Paul? You call it there then?
That'll be it for me.
Very good. We'll speak tomorrow.
See you then.